Hello, it's me, Jann Arden, award-winning singer-songwriter, and this is my podcast. Well, it's our podcast. I'm here today, as always, with Caitlin Green and Sarah Burke, and guess what it is? And we're going to need some kind of applause, some kind of cheer, because today, January 31st, year of our Lord, the Mixtape record is out. It is my 16th studio record.
Jeez. That's wild.
16 records. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. They always
What does that feel
so
like?
Abruptly.
Like as an artist, does it feel like, are you like 16 albums? Like what?
Well, I've been with Universal for 31 years, 32 years. I think I signed in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, coming up on 33 years. Been with the same record company. You know what? It feels good, but it also feels like I've been there for a long time, and I have to give them credit because they're still making records with me. And as you know, we don't sell a lot of records anymore. We're all on the streaming platforms. Some people still sell records. I know Michael Bublé sells records. Adele sells records. I think Taylor sells records. So there's a handful of artists, probably Beyonce, probably that top 1% of the artists that we all know their names that sell actual tactile compact discs. Cassettes are coming back, they tell me. I know Mixtape's going to be out on cassette. There's going to be a limited run of cassettes. Who's got a frickin' cassette deck is beyond me. And of course, vinyl is here with a vengeance. But yeah, it feels good. It's a great record. I think for anyone who's feeling nostalgic, which I feel like is everybody, especially in the last week, we all want to go back to an easier time, seemingly. So it's all 90s music. It's mixtape. It's like when your friends made you a mixtape.
Oh my God. I miss making mixtapes for people. And did you guys ever have where it was like if somebody liked you or you just started dating, your crush would make you a mixtape? That was fun.
Well, I don't think I was that lucky. I think just my pals at Springbank Community High School we'd make tapes for each other. And we also did the thing, it was a little later on in the 80s where we taped stuff on the VCR from Much Music. Like we'd sit there waiting for our favorite videos to come on.
Yes.
On like the top 10 countdown.
Yeah.
And hit the frickin' record button.
I wish I had those.
Oh, I know. I've got a couple.
Really?
I've got VHS tapes. I don't have a player.
Right.
But I have VHS tapes that are just like favorite videos, Much Music, 1986 or something like that.
God. I would love to see what's on those.
Well, when you come to visit us, when you come to visit me and Poppy,
we're going to buy a VCR player at someone's nearby garage sale or a pawn shop. I bet you pawn shops would still have them maybe. And then get it going.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think if you went on Facebook Marketplace,
right,
you could find a VHS. I have got a shop full of probably still 600-700 VHS tapes from anything from, I've got the Goonies, I've got original Star Wars in boxes. I've got, because my mom and dad owned a video store in the 80s. So a lot of them are gone somewhere. All the adult titles have magically disappeared. God only knows where they went to. Yank My Doodle, It's a Dandy, and In and Out of Africa have suddenly disappeared.
Okay.
But I do have some really great titles, and Nigel tells me that they are worth a lot of money in the boxes. I mean, they're obviously used, but I might just put them out there. But getting back to me, my record. Mixtape, I want to shout out to Leah Gautier, who was one of my partners on Writers on the Jann Show. I had finished the record and I was thinking of like playlist. I was fooling around with that. I had some really stupid long titles. One of them was, I Bet You Thought You Knew the Words. And I think I told you guys that a long time ago.
Yeah.
Bruce Allen said, no, that's ridiculous.
That's a very good stupid Bruce impression.
Yeah.
That's her manager, by the way.
Leah, first thing I said, I don't know what to call it. And she said, Mixtape, call it Mixtape. And Bruce loved it so much. The record company loved it. I'm like, oh my God, do I give Leah credit? Do I give her credit?
Yes.
I am. I'm giving her credit.
I have to ask you, this takes me back to my music interviewing days.
Go.
So I'm wondering, which of these songs was the first one you went to lay the tracks down for?
Well, Russ and I had been doing a whole bunch of 80s music, like almost 2 years ago we started. And I was doing, I think the first song that I did was Boys of Summer, which is an 80s track, which did end up on this record as well. We did decide to
the
go
bonus.
90s stuff, but I said to Bruce, I love how Boys of Summer turned out. That was the first one we did. It's so different. It's laced with harmonies. It's really laid back. It's very eerie. And I think from a female perspective, singing that song is
Cool.
very different. You know, how girls, when they're broken up with, and I was thinking about my young self for sure. And I did go sit in front of people's houses and look in the windows to see if I could see who they were with or what was going on.
Oh
and I
my
think
God.
back to those times, yes. And I'm
my
like,
gosh.
what a loser.
It's like
But
driver's
I was
license,
very
Olivia
obsessed.
Rodrigo.
It's when I heard that song for the first time, I thought, well, true to that. When I was in my 20s, I did that. So,
Okay.
Well, I
so
love
Boys
Boys
of
of Summer.
Summer
You're
was the
right. It
first
is
one?
eerie.
well, it's just, I can see you, your blonde hair shining in the sun. You got your something back and your sunglasses on, baby.
Mhm.
But anyway, it's very creepy. And when you slow those songs down, those lyrics really pop out. But I think we've done, I worked with Russell Broom, my dear friend. We worked together for many years, decades. And we've made, this is our second record that we've made together. And we had a blast. He produced this thing like a champ. I mean, the ideas that he had, his playing is so superb. You'll love it. I'm really proud of the record. So if you're anywhere today where you can go pick up a copy or stream it or listen to it,
You
I
better be
think,
waiting in line at HMV.
oh my God, you better not be waiting in line. You can order the vinyl like anyone. You can go to Amazon. You can go to, your HMV online. You can
Your
get the
website.
record. Anyway, we got lots to talk about. First of all, the Academy Awards. So thoughts on that. Like they just released the best of the nominations, and I didn't think they were doing the Academy Awards. So what's
okay.
no, but because of the horrendous fires and the catastrophic damage in California, like I had read, no, they're gonna do something else. They don't feel it's in the right taste or the right climate to go ahead with the Academy Awards. So did I miss something? I probably did. I don't know anything.
I think that, I think kind of all the awards, there was discussion around whether or not they would go on, but I don't think that there was ever any concrete determination that these awards weren't going to happen because they're on March 2nd and it feels like it's enough time, I think, for a lot of people to kind of like get their bearings and hopefully for hotels to open back up. That was one of the bigger considerations as well, that a lot of people who were temporarily staying somewhere else, their insurance companies are putting them up in hotels and it was impacting hotel availability for the awards.
Yeah. Where would
but
they
it
put
is
everybody?
Yeah, that was a real thing. So yeah, it's going to happen on March 2nd. I'm mostly excited, quite frankly, because I haven't seen a lot of these movies. I'm going to be honest with you. It's being hosted by Conan O'Brien, and I just am tickled that he's going to be the one hosting that night. So I can't wait, because this is a year. I think it's a rough year for the Academy Awards. I'm going to call it. I don't see too many people I don't know too many people who've seen these films.
Movie-wise?
Yeah. Like, I don't know too many people who've seen
So
Amelia.
what are the 5 films?
So,
Is there
so the
8
best
films?
picture, the best picture nominees are Honora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked.
I've seen a few of them. Seen The Substance, seen Wicked,
We
seen
have lots of
Conclave.
Canadian representation, actually. There's a couple different things. So the filmmaker for Dune is from Quebec.
Yep.
Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
Yep.
There you go. And there's actually we talked about the Emilia Perez, that narco transgender story.
Musical.
So that one is up for a ton of awards. But there's a filmmaker by the name of Julian Brave Noisecat, who worked with a journalist named Emily Cassie. They're both born in Toronto, actually, and they're up for the documentary Sugarcane. So that's the investigation into the BC residential school near Sugarcane Reserve. But like, to see it represented on like the Oscars list is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Well, it's very important to be nominated.
Yeah, I think Canada does like pretty well when it comes to like our shorts and our documentaries and especially our Quebec language films. I mean, historically we've seen quite a bit of success there. And yeah, Denis Villeneuve, obviously, like he's not being entered in as a Canadian or like, but I mean, he is a Canadian director. I don't think Dune's going to win, unfortunately, which rattles me because it was by far like my favorite movie of the year. But I think Dune and Wicked of that list, and there's quite a few titles there, those are the only two real blockbusters. Like those are the only two real films that I think had a major push in theaters. The rest of them, it's a bit of a head scratcher. Like The Brutalist, I don't even think had a wide release until very recently. It has. We've talked about this before, but it has a dang intermission. It's so long.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I forgot.
What
Emilia
was it? Three and a
Perez.
half hours? Three
Yeah,
hours and 20
three
minutes?
and a half hours. And again, I know a few people who've seen Emilia Perez, and um, it's a real mixed bag on the reviews there, and on the
Yeah.
on the fact that it is or isn't a musical. Like my understanding is it's like a lot of sing talking. Again, I haven't seen this, so I'm coming from a place of not knowing.
Who doesn't like sing talking?
Ugh.
I've seen Anora. I've seen
Okay.
Conclave. I've seen Dune Part 2. I've
Yep.
seen The Substance. I've seen Wicked. I've not heard of the Nickel Boys. I almost watched I'm Still Here the other day.
Mhm.
Complete Unknown.
Mhm.
I have not heard of The Brutalist. I keep checking iTunes to see if it's out to watch it because I thought
Yeah.
perfect thing to watch at home because you can
Yeah.
stop to pee,
Yep.
or you can do it in
Yeah.
two
Agreed.
parts.
Yep.
You can do it in two parts. You can watch half and then watch half another time, which I have been known to do as well.
No, this
But
would be ideal.
the substance is going to be interesting. And you know what? I gotta, really give it to Demi Moore because she has really not been appreciated, I think, in a way that she should have been. I still love Ghost. We talked about her on the podcast a few
Yeah.
weeks ago. And the movie was crazy wild. When we talked about if you don't like needles, do not watch this movie because it'll ping your string. But she must have just been so chuffed when she saw those because it's a game changer. It changes the trajectory of your life. You are never thought about the same way again. When you're an Academy Award nominee, your creditation just skyrockets. Like your value, your worth, it changes in Hollywood, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's a big deal. And she also was told, and she said this, I think, in her Golden Globe speech, that she would really only be kind of like this popcorn movie actress. And we all remember her in, G.I. Jane. And she became this sort of like very much a sex symbol, which then sometimes can be difficult for actresses to come out from under that categorization and be taken seriously for like art films. But I think it's cool. So Substance got 5 nominations. Again, I haven't seen that either. I've heard fantastic things from everyone who has seen it that I know. I just, again, with the body horror, I don't know if it's for me. But
Elton John has once again been nominated for Best Song. I think this is about his 8th go round for Best Song. And in order to qualify for Best Song in the Oscars, it has to be specifically written for that project. It can't be something that's a volunteer from a catalog. Like you can't just pick. It's got to be specifically in that project, written for the project. Animated films, I got to watch some of these. Wild Robot is one of the best movies that I saw last year.
okay.
And I was on the plane. I was probably flying to Toronto. My friend told me to watch it. She goes, it's animated, but it's not a kid's thing specifically. I cried for 90 minutes watching The Wild Robot. If you
What's it
want to
about,
watch
roughly?
something, spaceship crash lands on planet. Planet is all animals. It's all wild animals. And this little robot gets out of the planet and it's being sent out on a mission. We don't get to find out what that mission is, but he is introduced to all these little animals and he programs himself to learn what they're saying to him because they're really scared of this thing.
Okay.
So it takes him, however long it takes him to get his software upgraded so he can understand the raccoon and the bear and the ducks and the birds it is so, me. I mean, what I wouldn't do to understand my deer who are now, waiting on my deck in the morning for me. But I did. I cried all the way through it. And I love those stories that are metaphors for life. And they're just so special. I highly, highly recommend Wild Robot. And I also highly recommend Conclave. I'm not a huge person that knows a lot about Catholicism, nor do I know much about the choosing of a pope. But Isabella Rossellini is superb. She is so deserving of a supporting actress nomination in that movie. It's worth it. You'd think it would be so tedious. It is riveting. I needed Ativan. I haven't taken an Ativan for about 20 years, but watching Conclave and watching what they go through and the pettiness of trying to elect a pope because the pope has died, the previous pope. So Conclave and Wild Robot are two that I would highly, highly recommend. Do you guys have any recommendations, things that you've seen? I mean, Wicked was really fun too. I'm definitely going to watch that again.
Yeah.
Ariana Grande
still,
got a nomination too.
Yeah, best supporting.
She was really thrilled about that. And I think when you consider how much effort it sounds like her and Cynthia put into this, oh my gosh, their whole press tour for that was like just them talking about immersing themselves in these characters and in that film and that world for so long. I think that's a big one. My favorite was still Dune Part 2. And I know it's not going to win anything, but like I love that movie and I love that series and I'm really partial to it. But yeah, I mean, maybe Timothée Chalamet and maybe Zendaya wouldn't have been nominated for that, but I don't know. I love Benicio del Toro in it, like love, love, love. Or not Benicio del Toro. I always get him confused with Javier Bardem. Javier Bardem, he was so fantastic in it. Oh my God. I was like, and again, I haven't seen enough of the nominees around supporting yet to really gauge whether or not he was considered a snub. And I do enjoy picking through the snubs. There'll be a bunch of articles now that come out following today's nominations about who got snubbed. So I kind of do like picking through those as well.
Nicole Kidman's name is being thrown around as a snub.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm not sure what film. I think that would have been for Baby Girl, which was apparently soft porn. Nigel said, please don't ever watch that with your mother. I said, well, I can't because my mother's dead, but thank you very much. He goes, but you know what I bloody mean. But yeah, there's some, some years are a little more content oriented than other years, but I still think there's some real gems in there, and I love going through them and watching them. So anyway, did you read the book to Dune? Were you one of those young kids that had the 4,000 page Dune book and just peeling through it? No,
and my dad was that kid and that guy, and so we had the whole series at home, and it just never, at that age, it never really spoke to me. But I am interested now because of how much I love the films in going back and checking it out. But I haven't historically been a big sci-fi reader.
Well, I got through 80 pages of Dune when I was like 22, and maybe I was just hung over something. Like I was so determined because I was a Lord of the Rings person. I did read all that stuff, J.R.R. Tolkien, but Dune, I was so overwhelmed. My mind caved in. There were so many people and so many things. And even when I watch the films, I don't completely understand what I'm talking about. But speaking of books, and I do want to touch on this story a bit because we last week announced our book bag book club on the Jann Arden pod, and In Memoriam is our first choice for book. Anyway, this is a weird thing that happened. So Philadelphia Eagle wide receiver A.J. Brown was on the sidelines, and he was caught on camera, sitting there waiting to go on and do his thing in football.
Yes.
He was flipping through Jim Murphy's book called Inner Excellence, and the camera showed that to him. Overnight, this book became number 1 on Amazon and is still flying high in the top 5. So I want to talk about that a little bit, about the power of, I mean, Murphy is just so blown away that any comments that he's made, he's like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
but that's what did it for
woke
him.
up to the news, and everyone's like, "What? Why am I all of a sudden selling this many books?" And it was because an NFL star, and like the U.S., they love football so much. So
imagine he's the same player is like holding a copy of Mixtape. Watch
the Biddlemores. Can you hold that up?
The Biddlemores, yeah.
AJ Brown, would you mind holding that in the air?
Yeah,
I'll tell you, the closest I ever came to that, Sarah, years ago, I think my Christmas record came out 2015, maybe 2016, somewhere in there. Rod Stewart held it up in the studio on the social.
Oh, cool.
I was just on the social, And I didn't even think of holding my book up again because I have a
Dang
record to
it.
hold up now.
Hopefully
Jann?
you held up your album though, please.
Yeah. No, I definitely did. Definitely did. So yeah, it's funny. Never say never. And this is a really cool lesson in life too. You don't know what your break is going to be. You don't know what that thing is going to be that gets you to that next step. But yeah, just a simple thing of a shot, football game. I found that to be such a charming, lovely story of how it's. I mean, I know it's not a little thing; it's a big thing to be on with that much exposure. But I love the unexpected goodness that happens, and we have to remember the
Yeah.
unexpected goodness as we go forward, because
And
God
I
knows
also
we need
think
it.
I want more influencers, which a football player clearly would be, someone who would be influential, to just be photographed holding a book. Because if we can get everyone away from the internet and away from social media and towards reading a book,
Yeah.
I think we're in better standing than we find ourselves presently.
No, I agree completely. It's but we're all sort of we're news hounds, and we're just waiting. We're waiting for good news to happen. We're
Yes.
waiting for those little pearls of
Yeah.
goodness to fall out of the sky, because it's a lot of doom scrolling right now, and I'm guilty of doing that as well. I'm really trying not to. Me and Poppy are heading down the road. I don't even look at my phone. I snap a picture of Jan's road, and then I stick it in my pocket, and we carry on. But
It's hard to tell what is even true right now. Like this whole thing with the following and unfollowing of like Biden or Trump or any of these American political accounts, like not to dive too much into that, but like,
yeah,
you know, I looked it up on my phone and I was following all those people and I clearly was not. So like when someone like
yeah,
Mark
people were telling me
Zuckerberg,
that, and I looked. They're like, "You're following so and so," and I looked, and I wasn't. So I'm not sure what people are seeing and what they're not seeing, but I was definitely not following the Vice President of the United States of America. I wasn't. I couldn't find it anywhere.
right.
I wrote this girl back. She was all panicked, like, "You're following." I'm not even going
Okay,
to say
first
his
of all,
name.
that's where
And I just,
that's where you lose me. Who is policing who everyone follows? If
but
you
this
have
is the
time,
thing. And I said, I will check. I said, I will check. So I did check. I'm not following. The follow box was blue. It didn't say anything. And I wrote her back, and I
It
just,
does. I'm following JD Vance. I just looked it up. I only
okay,
looked up Trump
but
before.
so
oh
is that
God.
his handle or is that the vice president handle?
Both of them. Believe me when I say
Oh,
I
okay.
am not following like yeah.
So yeah, so a number of people were. So what happens is when there's a transition of leadership,
They get the account.
they get the account exactly. So there's a POTUS and then a V vice president account. So if you were previously following Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on their professional POTUS and their VP accounts,
I'm going to
you are
look.
now by default following Trump and JD Vance.
I
So
gave
that
this spiel to a friend and then she
yeah,
was like, "No,
So
look."
do I just put president?
Type in
just
President
type in Donald
Trump?
Trump. Just type in Donald Trump. He'll probably have two accounts, or maybe he
POTUS,
only has
right?
one.
No, I'm not following POTUS.
But
So,
again, here's just what I want everyone to just deep breaths, everybody.
okay.
If you are spending any of your time going through and checking who public figures are or aren't following, you're unwell. You're part of the same thing. If you're trying, like, I promise you, there is stuff to be outraged about, and there's way better use of your time than going around policing who other people follow. Because there were, I think, something like 3 million people unfollowed, like they went in and unfollowed JD Vance or Donald Trump because they were alleging that Meta was forcing people to follow them. They were like auto following it.
It's
And
like
even
the
if
YouTube album drop.
yeah, exactly like the YouTube album drop. Like it was forced onto your
Oh, I
phone, right?
remember
So
that. I remember that.
yeah, so that is justifiably very annoying. And that story about whether or not Mark Zuckerberg and Meta and Twitter, whether or not these men who stood behind him at the inauguration and who stand to gain immense amounts of wealth and power from their proximity to Donald Trump, whether or not they are doing that, that's interesting to me. Like I care about that story. I'm not going to pop into the DMs of Sarah McLachlan and be like, excuse me. Like that is just go volunteer for a local political party. I beg of you, because you're not solving any of the world's problems with this type of behavior. It like drives me up the wall because I'm like, I need you to go. We have a leadership race coming up. Why don't you go Register for that or volunteer for that.
This has been a public service announcement from
Well,
Caitlin
no,
Green on the Women in Media Network.
It activates me.
I don't want to admonish anybody, but I think the tone
I do.
that was coming off of that page to tell me that I was following them, and I did go check, but I think I don't always trust technology either. Like whatever she was seeing was not what I was seeing, and it does happen. I have been accused, as you know, of like unfollowing people. How come you unfollowed me?
You're like,
in
I didn't even know I did that. What?
And I always say, well, you must have done something.
Yeah. And
but
you have an unhealthy parasocial relationship with somebody who you don't even know in real life if this is what you think of and what consumes your thoughts. Like
Yeah.
I beg of you, we need people in the good fights that are all around us right now. Go put your energy into the tangible. If this is what you're complaining about while you watch the world burn, you're part of the problem.
Well, it's like manifesting, that negativity. And if you don't believe in that stuff, you don't believe in that stuff. I do believe in manifesting good things. I absolutely think, a good portion of the success that I've had in my career is because I believed that I could do things. I believed in myself. I had a mom that always said to me, "Why not you?" Well, why not? You've got cute little arms. And so I was raised by a mom that was so optimistic in the face of a lot of shitty things. My brother, who was constantly committing petty crime and eventually ended up in jail for a long, long time. My dad, who was a crappy drinker and brought a lot of dark clouds into our house. But my mom, Sean, there was always, even in the darkest moments, I could see some kind of glow coming from underneath her cardigan sweater. And it just was always there. It was just always there. And that's what I learned. That was who I learned from. I don't think my dad was around enough for me to actually glean anything except that he worked hard. He was hard on himself. I can see that now. But my mom, and so yeah, make sure that you do, getting back to the success of this man's book, Jim Murphy's book, going viral by being held up at a football game. Why not expect good things? We have to go forward. There's going to be 4 years of this, and keep in mind there's a lot of people that are really, really happy about this 4 years, and they're out there with this energy, this positive energy, pushing it out there. It might be a little bit testosterone driven, I'll just say that, but an awful lot of women voted for Voldemort. But I'm just saying, don't expect bad things to happen, because they will. And, I don't know, worrying is praying for things you don't want. So I have really worked hard on changing the way that I'm thinking going forward. You're listening to the Jann Arden podcast and the Women in Media Podcast Network. I think we have a little dot that Caitlin wants to put onto our last conversation before we went to break. An asterisk. So yeah, let's finish this off, because I didn't give you a chance to respond.
An asterisk is also that you can follow these accounts and it does not denote approval, because I followed JD Vance before he even became VP, because quite frankly, I'm very, very interested in understanding the direction of the next 4 years. I'm very interested in understanding, and these people tell on themselves. So there's this whole Project 2025 that's like, 922 pages thick or whatever it is. I don't know who's going to read that or who has the time. But a lot of the stuff that's been enacted in these first few days is very clearly outlined, and they'll say it on their socials and they'll put it out there. And so I am interested in knowing. It does not mean that I think that what they're doing is great, but I think that this is a different era that we're living in politically. It is very much the megafication of the Republican Party in the US. That's not going to change anytime soon. So if you don't want to expose yourself to it, I totally appreciate that. I love hiding in Bravo land as much as anyone else does. But when something's up, I want to know. So I will closely follow along. And that's just me. But it doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, I love it.
Repeat what you said. Following somebody is not giving them
approval. It's not. This is not the same thing.
So let's try not to,
castrate people.
Yeah, but just just doing that sleuthing
Let's care about the right stuff.
yeah, and just the being a good neighbor thing. You don't know why I'm following. I mean, there's cosmetic companies that I follow that are not cosmetic companies that I believe in. But like you said, Caitlin, I want to know what they're doing now. I want to keep up to date on what they're testing, what they're not testing, like what their whole vibe is. So I follow a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different accounts, like
Yeah.
tons. I follow 7,500 people.
Mm-hmm. It's a
And
lot.
yeah, it's a lot because I want my feed to be diverse. I don't want to just blind myself with
Exactly.
cute kittens the whole time. I actually want to see issues that bother me and that,
Yeah.
maybe I can do something about. Anyway, moving on, as promised, middle child syndrome. Caitlin brought this story to the table and it made me laugh reading it. But what's your take on this? I'm a middle child.
Well, I'm an only child, so sibling dynamics and siblings in general is always something that's fascinated me because I don't understand it myself. But this study was sort of it appealed to me because it kind of said that the middle child was the good one. It said that it was this study that said middle children are more honest, humble, and agreeable than their older and
Aw.
younger siblings. And this was researchers using, and I don't know what this is, but they called it the Hexaco personality inventory to analyze 6 personality traits: honesty, humility, emotionality, extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness to experience. And middle children scored very high in honesty, humility, and agreeableness. And they say those with very high scores on the honesty humility scale avoid manipulating others for personal gain, feel little temptation to break rules, and are uninterested in lavish wealth and luxuries, and feel no special entitlement to elevated social status.
Well, I
Who's
mean, as much as I would like to say that I'm all those things, it makes me feel good. I feel that I do try to do all those things.
hmm
Like I am agreeable. I don't like being contentious. I
hmm
love to solve problems. I love to get in between people and fix things, when I can. So I wonder why that is. Like what's your take on that as a only child? And you're one of two, Sarah.
I'm an
So
Yeah.
older. Does it say anything about youngest or older?
No, I mean, I'm sure somewhere in this larger study, but in the snippet that I found in this article, there was no other explainer beyond
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think I also was like, did a middle child write this? As the only child, I feel like it's one of those things that sounds like it would be true. I also always heard though that the middle child was the one that had to be louder or do more to get attention within the family dynamic.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's true either, but that they kind of it's the child that gets lost in the mix of the first child being the older one and the youngest child being the baby, that the middle child sort of gets like this is the stereotype that I hear from others. Jan, is that true? Do you feel like for you at
I
all?
feel like my little brother got everything he asked for.
Same
Okay.
with the younger sister.
I
Just
I, I
saying.
just I just feel like Patrick, and he deserved it. I think Dre was so wild and he was so out of control that my parents were just worn down. I kind of blended into the furniture. I did my own thing. I
Mm.
was very easily entertained myself. And Pat was, he was very conscientious. He'd spend 20 minutes on his feathering his hair in the morning when feathering was a big deal. He would be doing that and he only dressed a certain way and things had to match. And I remember that about him when he was really young. He's 5 years younger
Mhm.
than me. But I felt like he got what he wanted when he asked for it. If he wanted Adidas Gazelles, he got Adidas Gazelles.
Oh yeah.
And I'd
Joanna.
be like,
My God.
but mom would always say, well, Patrick, he, da 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 ba dibby da,
Yeah.
kututu. And I'd be
There's
like,
always a reason.
okay, well,
Mhm.
well, you can take it, you can work at the golf course and get your own Adidas Gazelles. I don't need to. I was like always the person, well, you're older than him and you can do that yourself. So I'm glad he got the stuff he wanted because, you know, I'm just glad he did. He's a good guy.
I mean, as the only child, you're truly never fighting for a resource of any kind. So there is that piece of it, but at the same time, you grow up like a little adult, and
Mhm.
and so that comes with like I think an advanced understanding of adults because you just occupy and inhabit their world nonstop. There is
Yeah.
no peer that lives with you. You have to schedule time to be around someone who's your own age. And so that is a very different dynamic.
Aw.
And Yeah. I'm curious about that though, because like Will is going to be an only child. And so I wonder about that for him as well. Like, how will that look? And I already can feel that I'm like, damn it, I'm gonna have to book so many play dates. Like I'm gonna have to be, and my parents had to do the same thing. Like they gave me this big room that was like, you know, and a lot of people would think like, oh, it's like your only child and like you're being spoiled. And I remember my dad saying, no, this was intentional because we wanted her room to be the hangout spot. We wanted to have an open door policy with her friends so that she could have friends over, so that she could have sleepovers, so that she had a little bit more of the camaraderie of that would be kind of
I
missing
like
from a
that.
sibling, which I think I would try to emulate that same thing because it does help you socialize for
Yeah.
sure. So you do, it's like having a dog. You got to socialize them. And if you're an only child, I was very quickly, quite honestly, just socialized to adults. And I did prefer the company of adults, unfortunately, for me when I had to go
Well,
to
I'm
school.
so not shocked.
Yeah, I
What
did.
about what about the sister? What about younger sister,
Yeah.
older sister? What was that
I
like?
think the interesting dynamic with like just two siblings, it's like a head-to-head competition, like
Mm.
straight between each other versus it being like spread out over 3 kids or 4 kids or whatever. So it was like, and even to this day, like, you know, for example, my sister was doing a renovation in her basement and my dad felt like he had to come to me and say, do you need anything? Like, do you need me to and I'm like, no, Dad, I'm good. But it's because he tries so hard to keep things equal between the two of us.
Yes.
And that is something that probably stems from some guilt at some point when we were growing up. But like, oh, don't even get me started on dance class. Like if I was in a dance competition, but she was in the recreational class, right? Like there was sometimes some things that weren't even. And
Yep.
even if it was literally because like, oh, well, you can't do those jumps and the advanced class is doing those jumps and you're 2 years younger, so we'll get you there soon, it would still be a problem in the house. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
yeah, I get it. I mean, any of my friends that I know that have sisters in particular, because I had
oh
two
yeah.
brothers,
Yeah.
really would say to me, and I still hear it to this day, and we are 60-year-old ass women. Oh my God, you're so glad you don't have sisters. What a pain in the ass. Oh, because I always say, so how's so and so doing? And it would just be like, I have so many friends that have a lot of sisters.
Yeah.
My friend Nadine, who looks after Poppy all the time, has 9
Mhm.
sisters.
Oh my God.
Jesus
9.
Christ.
A
And
household of 10 people, 10
and then
children. That's
and 2
wild.
brothers, and 2 brothers.
Oh my.
So the brothers were really in precarious places, you know, they
Yes.
were very estrogened right out the back door, I'm sure.
Estrogen.
As a verb. I love
Yeah.
that.
They were estrogened all over the damn place. I mean, imagine dealing with 9 young periods going on in that house and
Oh
all
my
the stuff with I mean,
God.
you don't think about things like that, but it very much plays into girls being moody, petty. When you have 9 sisters and you grow up in Saskatchewan in a farming community, you know, can you imagine? That's my shirt, that's my clothes, those are my
Oh,
jeans,
Yeah.
I
these
got
are my
lots of
shoes. I
that.
mean, there had to have been a lot of that. There had to have been competition because Catholics, they just boomed them out. Dun, 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 dun. It's like Russian dolls.
My grandmother
And
had 8 children and my other grandmother had 10. So my
yeah,
dad grew up in a family of 8 and my mom was in a family of 10
well,
and
My
they had
dad's a
one
family of 7.
child. Yeah.
it's no wonder they had 1 kid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like ultimately they had health issues, which is why they had one
Okay,
kid.
I
But
take that back. I'm sorry.
like I did grow up hearing and witnessing their family dynamics very firsthand. And I was acutely aware when people I felt like you could feel sometimes like adults or certainly not other kids, but adults would like almost pity you for being an only child. But my other friends who had siblings
We're
envied
jealous.
me. They were
I
very
agree.
jealous. And I was very aware of the fact that I was like, the way adults perceive the dynamic of being an only child is not at all the way other children do. Other children I saw, they were very they were always fighting with their siblings, always. And I mean
Yeah.
viciously fighting in a way that
Oh,
scared me.
physically. I
Oh
physically
yeah.
fought with my brothers. Like
Oh
we
my God.
pounded each other.
I couldn't believe it. Because think about this. You're an only child. My favorite game to play at home was library. Okay. So we're coming from that
I should
energy
have come to
level.
your house.
And then I would go over to like Michelle Reed's house and her brother would be like, I thought, like, I'm like, I have to call 911 right now. Like, I was like, I need the police to come. This is not normal.
There
It
And
was normal
point.
though. It was so normal.
and again, like the way that I saw then kids treat each other at school, because I didn't even go to daycare when I was younger. My mom was stay at home for a long time. So I was like, this was very odd to me. I mean, I really did grow up around adults only. And I got to school and it was like somebody put me in a science experiment. And I was like, you guys are cruel little hellions. You seek to make each other cry and you physically abuse one another. And I would care to leave.
Guys,
Well-
there was a point where I threw, and my sister, we both threw hardcover dictionaries at each other in the kitchen. I remember.
Oh my God.
Like just holding a full giant dictionary
Yeah.
and tossing it at each other. Like, we were so mean, both of us.
I saw it like as the outsider, I felt like I felt like I was going to school in a lab coat and someone was sending me in to watch what was happening.
Adult Caitlin going to work.
And expecting me to participate in it as if it was normal, which to me it was not. So I was like, oh yeah, go outside for recess. I was like, can I stay in here with you, teacher? Because this is where I'm at. And
you have any busy work for me to do in the cafe?
Oh yeah. Can I please clean the erasers? Don't send me outside with these kids. They're covered in boogers and kicking one another.
You know, we want you to leave us a voice note about this, folks.
Please
do.
I want to know.
We want you to write either to us on Patreon or please go to the Jann Arden pod. There's the little red microphone. It's easy to find now. It's all been kind of fixed.
Yeah.
But we would love to hear your
especially
sibling rivalry stories. We want to know if you're a middle child. We want to know if you're an only child. We want to know if you're from a family of, I mean, my grandmother was one of 17 children. So, you know, it was nutty. And anyway, I don't think any part of it's easy. I don't think it's easy having one sister. I don't think it's easy having two brothers. I don't think it's easy being an only child. You're going to do great. You and Kyle are happening.
The increase in other only children, I mean, and I appreciate hearing that, makes me feel better about him very likely being an only child, because I know that other parents are going to be prioritizing that external play from outside of their family, because that's what you really need. And I felt that as a child too. Like, I realized that so many of my friends were spending a lot of time with their siblings, and so their parents it wasn't a need for them on Saturday or Sunday to find play dates.
But look at
for
you.
me,
I feel like Will has a better social life than I do. Truly, when I watch your Instagram, I'm like, he's got a new friend over every day.
Well, he spends a lot of time with adults, and he really likes adults too already.
Cute.
So yeah, he'll be good. But it's interesting. I like hearing this about all the different dynamics.
You are an exceptional person. You're a critical thinker. You're thoughtful. You're creative. You're artistic. Like, even with whatever happened with your mom and dad, I know they split up when you were younger, and you had step parents involved. I mean, you came out of it pretty damn great. And
yeah. So I'm not agreeing. Yeah, as in pretty great. But I'm agreeing. I'm validating that, like, it was topsy turvy for sure at points for me. But I do think that only children, you spend a lot of time alone, and so you do have like a certain amount of inner. I don't know if it's strength necessarily, but you're just like, it's second nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, but thank you, Jann. That's very, very nice of you to say. And I'm having a crummy week, so
no, you have had a lot going on between the colonoscopies and chest colds and headaches. Caitlin just had food poisoning. Not only food poisoning, folks, but food poisoning from one of her favorite restaurants that obviously now she will be very reluctant to order from again, because when you've had food poisoning from a place, you never darken their door again. That's done. That's over.
I don't even want to eat that particular item again, because it's like, it's activating a trauma for me to even remember how the takeout containers smelled. I had to throw the takeout containers out of our kitchen because they were still in our recycling bin. And I like shoved Vicks Vapor Rub up my nostrils to take it out and then throw it away because I was so disgusted by the whole thing. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you're like, Caitlin looks a little pallid today, she's the same color as her sweater. That's because I'm barely alive. And I scratched my nose. I scratched the bridge of my nose.
She tried to put her shirt on over her glasses, which I guess she forgot were on.
Yeah.
And so when she pulled her sweater down, the bridge of her glasses took out the bridge of her nose. Mm-hmm. And anyway, you need to reward yourself with something delicious, a delicious carbohydrate, like a cinnamon bun or a big cookie or something. In Toronto, you guys have those cookies on spadina.
Oh, Le Gourmand.
Le Gourmand. Once in a while, they have a vegan version of the chocolate chip one there.
Okay.
But they go fast. She goes, we always sell out of them.
They're so good. They're iconic. And Craig's Cookies, which is truly at the end of my street.
And Craig's does lots of vegan ones.
They do vegan ones now too, Jann. Yeah, they're awesome. I love him. I love the story of his business. So I always feel good about getting it.
I just want to say that he reached out to me.
Oh.
And when we were in Newfoundland, they delivered Craig's cookies to our dressing room, and there was a bunch of vegan ones. So thank you very much.
God.
Listen,
Aw.
we're going to leave it there. We're going to leave it there with the middle child. We want to hear from you. To all our Patreon users, we have a new tier with our book bag club, $7. You get to participate in all of our discussions about our books, which once again this month is In Memoriam. And someone wrote me a couple days ago and just said, how long do we have to read this book? Like, what's our timelines? I don't want you to feel, don't bust your butt to try and get this book read in 2 weeks. Obviously, we're dealing with a book a month. You can participate in the discussions whether you're a weekend or 2 weeks in or whatever. So don't
Exactly.
worry about that. I know a lot of you people have put yourself on lists at the library, which is a great idea, or listening to it on Audible. So don't feel panicked. This isn't about you going out and spending more money. Trust me. Even though we're kicking your butt to do another tier in Patreon, I'm sounding like a crazy person now. We don't want your money, but we do want you to spend money. But yeah, so that's going to be happening. We're going to have book giveaways. We're going to have the discussions. We're going to have special get-togethers where you can join up. Sarah organizes so 100 of us can be on here talking about discussions and doing things in real time. So that's going to be fun too.
Yeah.
But
A
also
couple messages I have too from listeners.
Oh, yay, voice notes.
Let's
we don't
do
have
that.
any voice note. We don't have any voice notes,
right.
which is why I'm
Did
like,
you not
listen.
get a voice note from me?
No, but you wrote a message though, going, "Where is the microphone?" I got that message.
I did leave a voice note.
It didn't come in. Wait, was it today?
Maybe it was a few days ago.
Oh.
It was dumb anyway. It was just to
Okay.
say how great you guys were.
If I find it, I'm splicing it in.
No, I
But
probably
here,
did something wrong.
I grabbed some messages. So Cindy wrote us and she said a few things about changing after 60. I wanted to expand on what Jann said. I'm well past that age now and felt the ground seriously start to move at 58. I'm on the West Coast, therefore earthquake metaphors. I agree with Jody Foster and Jann and find it hard to explain to others who haven't experienced this positive shift. It doesn't help that menopause is so often cast in a negative light, like some sad mangling of purpose. In my case, I felt like I've arrived at my destination and I didn't know it existed in my younger years. Jodie Foster on that beautiful beach in Contact comes to mind. I'm happy in my solitude, never bored, full of creativity and intention, and grateful for good health and independence.
Fantastic,
So I love
Cindy.
that.
Love that. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, so let's see what else here. Wayne. Hello, just finished listening to the January 3rd podcast, Getting Caught Up. Sobriety, 'tis a beautiful thing if you can hang on to it. I'll be celebrating 37 years sober on February 1st.
Wow.
So he's coming up on that. Congratulations. That's tomorrow. Tomorrow from today's podcast release.
Yep.
My father was 48 years old when he died from drinking in 1977, functioning alcoholic. He worked at GM for 30 years. I moved to Calgary in 79 and was working in the Remand Center in downtown as a correctional officer. I did try to quit in 1980, but I wasn't ready. I returned to Ontario in 82 with my wife, started a family with 2 boys, and I quit. My aha moment was 5 a.m. February 1st. I retired from corrections in 2013. So cheers, continue to be successful and enjoy each days. And when he said cheers, he says, not that clink, clink.
Not a literal cheers, but like a figurative cheers.
Congratulations on that monumental accomplishment, one day at a time. And here's to the next 30. And you have really shown your boys such steadfastness and such strength of character. And I'm sure you have a lot of people that are very proud of you for that. Certainly one of the best things I ever did in my life. And I'm always proud of myself for that because it's a hard thing to give up because you think you're not going to have fun again. And you socially kind of want to fit in and you always have your mind trying to bypass all the negative parts about drinking. It's always like, but. And when you get past that, it's so great. So anyway, I celebrate with you. So congratulations.
So the links to leave a voice note, I'm starting to put in the show notes. So everything, Patreon, book club, all that stuff in the show notes.
Great. Well,
love that.
Thanks for your comments as always. Thanks for listening. Subscribe if you can. Hit that little button. It helps people find us, and it helps the podcast find you week after week. You don't have to go searching. But we sure appreciate you guys, and I appreciate Caitlin, and I appreciate Sarah. We always have great conversations. We hope you enjoyed Eliza Reid last week. And if you want to, there's still time to show up for the Iceland Writers Retreat. Even if you want to just take a holiday, why not take a holiday with something going on? And just a reminder that the ex-president, the former president, I'm using Sarah's ex, the former president of Iceland is going to be a tour guide going out on a day of searching around. So anyway, thanks again to Eliza. And her new book, Death on the Island, is coming out soon. So watch for that. And it's going to be one of our book club books eventually. It'll be my pick. The girls are next. So there's a couple months of them. And then that's going to be my next pick. But anyway, thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time here on the Jann Arden podcast. Toodly-doo.